Are we in the right room if Rob is the best dressed person in the room?
Well, no, you'd be in the wrong room if I was the best dressed person in the room. Julie made me put pants on. She's like, you cannot go to a boardroom. I'm like, we have table drapes. No one's gonna see it.
I wonder if like
How about the law? Is nothing against it?
well,
And you know, professional attire.
Yeah, very similar. Okay, it is 6:30 by my clock, or as I call it, Apple time. So we'll go ahead and begin we'll reconvene our open session, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Joe, would you help us with the Pledge of Allegiance today?
Sure. All right, pledge begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, report of action from closed session, item 3.2. There was no reportable action taken in closed session. On item 3.3, announcement of meeting protocols, we will have an opportunity for members to address the board on any matter that is on the agenda or any matter that is not on the agenda. If 1 to 9 members wish to make a comment on an agenda item, the speakers will have 3 minutes, and if there are 10 or more members of the public, then the time will be reduced to 90 seconds or 1.5 minutes, whichever comes first. Complaints about specific employees are not appropriate and should be made to that employee's immediate supervisor or the principal as required by board policy and administrative regulation. We will go ahead and jump to communications 3.4.
No communication.
All right. Committee reports. Any committee reports?
I don't think so. I don't remember going to any committee.
Okay. Student board representative introductions. We've got 2 student board members here with bright smiling faces. Who's going to do the introductions? Principals, where are you?
Antelope and Grand.
Why don't we start with ladies first? Let's go with
Felina.
perfect.
Awesome. So Felina Nguyen is our ASB president this year. She's a senior at Antelope High School. She was our ASB vice president last year. She's actually been in student government every term she's been in high school, so she'll be a lifer by the time she graduates next grade. She also is a multiple sport athlete. She's actually playing 2 sports right now together, both of them. So
Which?
It's kind of crazy. I can't believe you made it from both practices, and it looks like you even got changed.
Which sports?
Volleyball and tennis. Volleyball and
There
tennis.
you go. Nice.
She's also going to be a completer in our Project Lead the Way engineering program.
Nice.
She's the president of our APIC club on campus, which is the Asian Pacific Islander Club. And she's hoping, and we all think she's going to make it to UCLA next year to study business. When I talked to her counselor about Felina, she says that she's kind of just good at everything. And that's what we think about her. So she's going to do an awesome job for you guys. Wicked smart, lots to say. So that's what we do.
Awesome. Felina, welcome. Please.
All right. Alex, as I've introduced you guys from Granite Bay, as ASB president, Alex has been heavily involved in Granite Bay student government and has previously served as a class officer. He works to improve school culture and create an inclusive environment focused on campus beautification and improving spirit after the COVID years. He plans events considering the input from teachers and students, using ideas that include students from every niche. It's important to him that students on campus feel represented and heard, and he's just also a great guy.
Awesome. Welcome. Anything you want to say? Any comments you want to make? You're welcome to make them right now.
I just thank you guys for allowing me here.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
I'm just really grateful to be here. I've worked with Becca before to talk about Antelope, and I'm really excited to be on this board and be able to get my voice out and be able to listen to others as well.
So if you have any dirt on him, let us know. No, but in all seriousness, we appreciate you being here, and you are the reason why we exist. I mean, this is all about students, and so we would love to hear your opinions on any of the matters that we address. I'll certainly ask for them. I will guarantee you that at one time or another, I will probably forget also. So don't be afraid to just jump in and say, hey, wait, I got a comment. Don't move on yet. Interrupt me, please do, because I am, in my desire for efficiency, sometimes I forget. So welcome. I noticed some of the comments could have been interchangeable, but you are both phenomenal students and wonderful people. So we're glad to have you. So, okay. Item 3.7, public comment. This is a point of time when individuals can comment on any item that is not on the agenda. We do ask whether you speak on an item not on the agenda or on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card. Not required by law, but it does certainly help us out too, so we can have some order in calling people. Item 3.7, non-agenda items, Deanna Ponsetti.
Hi, my name's Deanna Ponsetti. I have a sophomore at Oakmont. I was a little emotional on Tuesday because he's not a freshman anymore. But anyway, I emailed out most of you in this room, and thank you, Ms. Franz and Mr. Constant, for your replies. And I just am here. You're going to see a lot of me because I'm here to keep in the forefront of your mind funding for the band program, specifically at Oakmont High School. I'm very excited because there was some carryover funding that Ms. Gouveia has sent our way, which is amazing, and that is definitely going to help this year. But next year, without some consistent funding source, we're going to be in the same exact position that we've been in. And I know that in my email and in all of my time speaking here, I just really feel like there needs to be consistency across the schools for the funding of the programs. When I send my kid to their home school, I wouldn't expect there to be a difference in what you guys are putting into the math or the science programs, and I don't expect anything different in a band program because it is a curricular area and we are supporting it through co-curricular activities. So I just don't feel it's right that Oakmont is getting $37 per student, where other schools in the district are allocating out of their site budgets $175 per band student. That's just, I don't see how anyone in this room can be like, oh yeah, that sounds fine with me. But anyway, and I would love at some point to have some sort of follow-up between the conversation that happened at the June 9th meeting where Mr. Basham talked about meeting up with Mr. Landon after Mr. Hodge brought the same exact thing up, specifically with properly funding the assistant band director position, because the funding right now doesn't even cover the position, so it's leaving up to the booster clubs to backfill that, as well as allocating busing mileage that doesn't go just to the school site to be allocated most often to sports programs. I'm not against sports program. I think sports programs are amazing, but I think we also need to prioritize our curricular and co-curricular activities. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comments? All right, I'm going to ask that we put this. We'll need to have some kind of discussion about this at some point in a future agenda meeting. So we'll have a conversation about it.
It's in part of his presentation.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit today during my budget presentation, even though there's no action, but just to talk, share kind of the conversations we're having and collect input.
Deanna, did you hear that?
I did.
Okay,
Great.
so stick around. We'll give you the whole seat, but you only need the edge of it for that budget presentation. So, okay. All righty. Okay, let me get back to the agenda. Moving on here. Item 4, consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion to approve a consent agenda. There's a second. Roll call vote.
Yes, Mr. Constant?
Yes.
Ms. Franz?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Ms. Hirota? Yes. And Mr. Huber?
Yes. Okay, item 5.1, RSEA report. Do we have one?
We have one.
Yes.
It was really short. I'm really tired.
Already?
This new schedule? No, I tell ya. I didn't think it was gonna be affecting me this much. It's affecting me. Like, we're all like, I'm not getting lunch till 1:30 now. Like, I'm smart. I told my kids they're confused my class because I'm hungry. All right, so. Alright, so here we go. Looking forward to working together with you guys this year. And I would like to pick back up where we left off last spring on working on issues like the declining enrollment at sites, making sure that we're continuing to work on that and how we can best support all of our schools. Also working together as we have been on more recent items like ensuring the safety of our schools. That's really paramount right now, and it's important to keep working on that as a collective unit. So I appreciate the willingness with the district with us for that. And I'm also pleasantly surprised to see the rosier than expected ongoing budget that the state gave us. So that also kind of made me smile some more. And overall, to be honest, I have loved the energized feeling coming back into the school year. It is very different than where we were a year ago. A year ago, we did not have this level of energy and like more positive feeling. So I'm very glad that we're back there because it's starting to feel more normal as we can with that. And I thought the PD days actually were kind of fun. I enjoyed those. So, and I really liked the speaker. I thought McDowell was excellent. So I really enjoyed having that. But my kids are excited and energized, and I like that too. So there we go. We're done. Short and sweet, I promised. See?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, item 5.2, real-time crime MOU and presentation. Hey, good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm just glad not to be up here talking about COVID right now.
I would like it.
I have no idea you would like that.
Apart from that, I think the calendar needs to reflect that you are presently the best dressed person in the room.
Wow, that's very nice. I appreciate that.
Just throwing that out there.
All right. Well, I'm glad to bring to you guys this evening an information item on the real-time crime center and the proposal that we're working on with Roseville PD. I know that the board is well aware, and I think the community is well aware that we have really good relationships with Roseville PD, and we're really glad to be bringing this to you guys tonight to give you guys a little bit of information and a peek at what the Real-Time Crime Center is all about and how it might serve not only the Roseville community, but in particular Roseville Joint Union High School District. With us tonight are Kim Crawford. Kim is one of the real-time crime analysts at the Roseville PD, and Captain Josh Simon are here tonight. So when I'm done, if there are questions that are more specific to their side of this, they are more than willing to come up and try to respond to any questions that you guys might have. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. If this will work. There you go. That's right. All right. So they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Exactly. I knew that was going to come. The Real-Time Crime Center is a facility at the Roseville Police Department that contains real-time video images from locations around the city. So this could include at some point video footage from businesses around the community. If you aren't aware, there are actually video cameras on most of the traffic signals around the city. I'm sure most of you are aware of that. If you're not, you just learned something new, and you might want to slow down out there. And we obviously have video cameras on all of our campuses and all RJUHSD facilities. So the Real-Time Crime Center will at some point look like this, where there are television monitors on a wall where the Real-Time Crime Center analysts can look at the city. If they get a call from the city, from one of the officers out on the streets, they have the ability to jump into those video systems and to identify what's going on in that particular area of the city. So what does Real-Time Crime Center, or how does it work? Essentially what will happen is a call will come in to the Real-Time Crime Center from an officer out on the street. The investigator, the real-time crime investigator, will determine if there's any technology resources available in that area. Is there a business there that they have video access to? Is it a school? Is it a traffic light? What is it? They'll collect information based on the technology and the information that they have available to them. They'll relay any, it could be video pictures, could be information about what's going on, but they relay that information out to the officer that's actually out on the scene. And so, as you can imagine, being able to track that and be able to get information like that real time obviously is going to help the officer out on the street. Our purpose is to leverage that video access during active events around the city to allow all of the technology resources to be located in one place, and to use the video footage to allow for more accurate and quicker resolution to different activities, criminal activities that are going on around the city, with the end goal, obviously, of keeping the city safe, and when it comes particularly to our schools, to keeping our schools safe. I've got a video that I want to show you here. This is Dallas-Fort Worth. Before I hit play on it, there is no audio to this. What I want you to watch is how this video footage will shift from one camera perspective to the next. And I think you'll find it informative in how this could potentially work and how a situation can easily overflow onto a high school campus rather quickly.
You said there's no audio?
There is no audio. So as you can see, an officer's in pursuit of a vehicle. Now they've switched obviously to another camera out on the streets. Again, another angle, and you can see how they can zoom in from the street. And we are now onto a high school campus. Using video footage on the campus, you can see the car driving up on the back side of the building. The driver runs out quickly. They've got access to both video cameras or all video cameras on the campus, so they can monitor what's going on from multiple angles and track the individual across the campus. He will quickly start to realize that he's running for no reason at all. It's funny when it dawns on him. It's right around here that he'll figure it out. And here we go back over the fence. Because there are already officers on the back side. Because of the video, they can get all of their vehicles around where they need them. And now he comes back into the school facility, and in a second he'll be down on the ground, and they'll take care of it. But you get the general idea here. It ends well. What I hope you noticed when you looked at this video, if I can get it to go forward, was that when the individual came onto the campus, he ran by several doors. Without that video footage, what the officers now have to do is determine, did he go into that door? Did he go into that door? Which room did he go into? Which facility is he in? And those seconds make a big difference. And so them being able to know, I don't have to check that room or that room, we know he's out on the football field, makes their lives a whole lot easier. So hopefully that helped you. Even without the sound, hopefully you got a pretty good idea of how the real-time crime video footage really does help out. You may be asking, Rob, where else is this going on? We know that obviously it's happening in Dallas-Fort Worth, and the reports that RPD got, they did go to Dallas-Fort Worth and did have conversations with those folks. They know that it's working well there with the school districts in Fort Worth. We know that Elk Grove is looking into this and in the process of moving in a direction, but they do not have an MOU in place at this point, to our knowledge. And we know that this is also in place in Chino with the school district there. As I said earlier, you guys know that we have really good relationships with RPD, but we also, because we have schools in 3 different counties, one of the things that may be coming to your mind is, Rob, how's this going to work if there is an issue at Antelope or there's an issue at Granite Bay? And it's a great piece to consider. We have Roseville PD, Placer Sheriffs, and Sac County all have really good interagency communication. So if there was something that was going on at Antelope, obviously the RPD would work with the Sac County Sheriff's Department to say, here's the information or the footage that we can get you, and get them whatever we can get them that they can use to help, bring a crime to an end rather quickly. So please keep that in mind, because we would want them to have access to all of our schools, obviously. As you think about the real-time crime, one of the things I do want to keep in your mind is this data from the state of California that talks about the number of school shootings that have happened recently. I don't give this to you as a scare tactic. I give this as real information. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I want the truth to be out there. And this is one of those things that is really a great piece of this, of what goes on here. The officers having the ability to know what's going on our campuses, should we ever find ourselves, I hope we never do, in a situation where we've got something like that going on our campuses, it saves seconds, and saving seconds saves lives. And so just something you want to keep in mind there as we discuss this or we consider this. Why a partnership between Roseville Joint and RPD? In addition to protecting lives, reducing crime, and encouraging and enforcing the law, the Real-Time Crime Center partnership allows for more accurate and timely information for RPD. As you saw in the Dallas-Fort Worth example, it allows officers to professionally, accurately, and quickly bring crime to an end safely for everybody. As far as the agreement, the intent in the MOU, if you were able to look at the MOU, is to give Roseville Police Department access to that video footage if there was a crime going on the campus, or if there was something that had happened previously and we needed information. So let's say there was a robbery on the campus over the weekend, and we had video footage of it. They could go back, look at that footage, and now use that footage to move forward on their investigation. So we want to be really careful about the FERPA violations that might occur. We don't want to overreach. They don't want to overreach. Trust me, they've got more work than they can handle. They're not sitting at their desk saying, hey, how can we go, spy on what's going on at Roseville Joint? They've got plenty of work to do and would be using this only for those reasons, and the MOU spells that out pretty clearly. I want to make sure everybody's aware of that. We did have conversations with both our legal counsel in case it's something that you've got a question about. Our legal counsel doesn't find any issues with the MOU as long as that MOU is put in place. We did check with School Insurance Group, and SIG also does not have any issues with the MOU and feels like it is absolutely something that would be appropriate under the conditions spelled out in the MOU. And I have talked with Tony Ham. He does believe that the transition of connecting Roseville Police Department with RJUHSD video systems would be something that is doable, and we think it's something that would be pretty seamless in making that happen. The last piece is this piece here. We gave you this timeline on purpose. We didn't want to come with an action item tonight. What we wanted to do was come with an information item to make sure that you had information, that the community had information and could think about and process this before we actually took action on it. So the intent would be to bring this back, whether that be for the next board meeting or at some later date, if we need additional information, and then to move rather quickly on getting an MOU in place, and then having our tech department work with Roseville PD to try to make sure that we connect the systems properly. And then the intent would be for us to try to come back to the board on a yearly basis to try to say, hey, here's how we've used this, here's how it's been used, and here's the positives of what's gone on here. If there were things that were challenges, obviously we would identify those things for you guys as well. With that, I will end what I've got to say and just see if there are questions that either I can answer or if we can answer any questions from RPD side of it for you.
Sac County, I just would like more clarification on working with SAC PD for the our school specifically.
So to our knowledge, and Kim or Josh can correct me, to our knowledge, Sac County does not have this technology available to them at this point.
So that would be Sac County Sheriff.
Yes.
To clarify that, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I don't know what access analytics specifically is given anybody
Yeah.
on our side.
We haven't given any access to anybody yet, but if we were to give access to Roseville PD, obviously they would work with Sac County sheriffs or whatever the agency is to try to deliver as much information. Let's say there was something going on the campus at Antelope, our PD would try to work with them to try to deliver as much video footage as they could. Depends on what technology Sac County sheriffs have available to them at the time. Okay, that help?
I was going to say, and it may be, and Pete can correct me as a former police officer, but I think how this typically would work is if there was some incident that went onto the school, Sac County sheriffs would call to say, hey, Roseville PD, do you have access to those cameras? Or they may reach out to the school district, can we get access to your cameras? We need to know what's going on. They would reach out saying, we've got an incident going on the campus, we need information. So, thank you.
I think that's a really good idea. I feel like that's just a step in the right direction for like school safety.
Yeah.
Especially because I feel like a lot of students kind of worry about that, especially now, just with everything going on. So I feel like having that kind of extra precaution and then also letting students know, like if something does happen in that scenario, we have these cameras and we've like taken the necessary steps to make sure that you're safe. I think that would kind of put a lot of parents and students at ease. So.
We hope.
Marla.
Yeah, so obviously, Roseville PD is being invited to look at our cameras. So if we have an incident, we let them know, take over, right? Which is okay, which is good. So, but in that instance with the video, the police department tracked them onto campus. Would they be calling ahead of time to the schools? I'm just wondering how that works because
The way I understand the MOU, and you guys can jump in if I'm wrong on this, the way I understand the MOU is in the MOU we're giving that access when there are criminal activities going on. So if there was something that found its way onto our campus, they would be able to have the authority to go into the system and look at that system in real time. So they wouldn't call me and say, hey Rob, we just had somebody come onto your campus.
I thought
It
I
would
read
be
that it was by
access
invitation,
real time.
but-
This is our invitation.
Okay.
The MOU is the
Yes.
invitation. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I understand. So they can just do it without telling us.
Well, yeah, because the MOU is the agreement
Okay.
saying
Yeah.
that we're giving you that permission
I
to do that.
understand. So it's not permission every single time.
No.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
But
It's as
Okay.
needed,
As
they
needed.
just
Okay.
jump right in.
Okay.
but I from a FERPA standpoint, there are, Kim and I talked about this, there's breadcrumbs. So and Tony and I talked about this, there's breadcrumbs. So if there was ever worry that Roseville PD was overreaching and in our cameras all the time, we would be able to go back in the system and look and see, okay, why are you guys in there all these times? And like I said, they've got way more important things. That's not going to happen. But we want to make sure people know that and are comfortable with
no,
it.
I think it's, so this is the invitation. They can then just come in and do it.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions?
This is such a typical Heidi question. So if no one can answer it, that's okay, but I'd be kind of curious to know, let's say we hypothetically had this system previously for the last couple of years. Have there been instances where, gosh, it would have been really great if we had that?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
So give you one example,
Yeah.
we had a situation in the community where they were chasing him through. We had to lock down this building because they was hiding over in the portable underneath. And so those cameras on this facility could have tracked the movement of that person. So we get a lot of times, we'll get an activity in the community and they're running around the campus. And so sometimes we have to go and shelter in place and they can track that person, kind of like the video we just saw.
Just comments when you get to comments, no questions.
Okay. We'll do that next, yeah.
I kind of have comment questions, so I don't know where it fits in.
Just add a question mark.
I'll ask some, well, it's
Their
more
voice goes up.
specific and
That's
it's
the
just kind of like an ideology is that I'm wondering if there's a possibility to look at, so if we had a cost associated with this, if that, let's just say however many thousands of dollars it is a year, could we apply those type of funds to enhanced SRO coverage, like an Antelope maybe or something, since we can't have this here? It's just an idea that maybe is really terrible, but
I don't believe there's any cost associated with this. It's a connection piece.
Oh, it's just a connection
It's a
piece?
minor
Okay.
connection piece, is my understanding. Don't quote me on that. I will double check with Tony, but I'm
Okay.
pretty sure it's just a connection piece. There's no added additional equipment.
It could be as easy as dropping software onto a PC and giving a authorized login.
okay, okay.
I don't know.
Okay, and then the other thing, it just has to do with the term. If the timeline, I think the timeline was September or something. I'm thinking a 1-year agreement from the time we start, and then automatically renewed every 2 years, just so we have a 1-year kind of observation time versus a 2-year observation time as a start date. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. It's not necessary.
Okay. All right. I don't have any questions. I've actually seen this in use in another community, and not as many screens as in that picture, but I don't have any question about it. But I do have some pretty strong positive feelings about it. But why don't we now, because since we had questions, now let's have some comments if you have any. You don't have to add anything because I know there were some comments made before, but if you have any comments, great. We'd love to hear them.
I agree with what Alex said earlier. I think it's a great precaution step for security feelings for both students and parents. And I think valid questions were questioned, and I think you've answered them, and I feel more better about this.
I think after kind of hearing the presentation and what you had to say, it's put a lot of my questions at ease, and it's kind of opened my perspective a little bit more to it. And I feel like it's shown me that it is a good precaution and a necessary step.
Comments?
I think it's a great program.
Heidi?
I like it. My son would think it's cool. I tell him. But no, I think it was, I'm trying to think of what is negative about it, and I don't see anything that's negative about it unless I'm missing that.
Please.
I think it's great. As mentioned, I'm a former retired officer, or currently retired former officer. We didn't have tasers when I was on patrol. We didn't have any technology, so seeing that we can finally do what they do on TV is really cool. So, generally on these things, I am skeptical and have a lot of questions in regard to civil liberties, because almost always you see government agencies jump into these things without thinking. They jump, they do, and then they look at the problems 2 years later and try and figure out how to get out of it. And what I like here is all that's been thought out, addressed, outlined, and documented in the MOU. So any issues that I would normally have, I don't have. And I just want to thank you for that, because I think this is going to be a very important tool here in Roseville. I think knowing how the interagency cooperation works when things are happening in real time, I think it will be a valuable asset to both Placer County Sheriff and Sacramento County Sheriff. And I'm sure they will work out that interagency communication, video, audio, and that's not going to be a problem at all. And I just say, as a parent who has had a bunch of kids in this district and had one of them, as you know, Rob, have a situation that was rapidly unfolding with police response and trying to capture an assailant, this would have been wonderful to have. So as a parent, I'm very thankful that we're doing that as well. And then my only other comment is with Julie, on the term, I think I could go either way. For me, the comforting language is the termination clause, that we can terminate if we need to. So that's my only comment there.
Thank you. Julie, any comments?
Thumbs up.
Okay. I'm going to make a couple of comments. I've seen this in action in other communities, in another community, and it works really, really well. In particular, to address, I agree with Pete on the civil liberty component. The breadcrumbs that are left behind by individuals who are accessing it, it's not just, hey, they accessed it, but frequently you can go back and you can look and see, what did they access? You've got copies of the video, because the law requires us to keep it for a certain amount of time. And so you can also see what did they access, not just that they accessed it, but you can see what were they looking at. I think this is great, and in particular, I think this is a great deterrent if we're able to advertise. Remember, we have cameras not just outside of campus, but inside too. Inside buildings, we have cameras. They will have access to those. If there's an incident inside the school, inside a building, they'll have access to those. I think it's wonderful. And I'm going to go just slightly off of this narrow focus for just a minute. In the National Night Out, in my neighborhood, there were, I don't know, 7 or 8 police officers there. There were 2 or 3 probation individuals, city manager, a couple of council members. And I stopped and I talked with many of the police officers to thank them for the great work that the SROs do, for the great work they've done at board meetings for the last several years. The response times are fantastic when we do have incidents, and unanimously, all of them had great praise for individuals in our district as well. That administration is great to work with, that it's really fun being on campus, that they can really prevent a lot of things happening, lower level stuff, but they're able to get kids and divert them before they get really in deep into some problems where then they can't just back out of it. So anyway, I think this is a wonderful step in that direction to give everybody another tool in the toolbox. I trust that it will be done right. And again, if it's not, we can always look at it. But typically when it's not, it's a one-off. It's not a systemic problem. It's usually just a one-off, incident. And this is, I think, and again, I'm going to go to a macro level. The defund the police movement is terribly misguided. And this is one of the examples why. This technology costs money. And that money isn't, and that technology isn't necessarily cheap. But as you mentioned, if you didn't have those cameras, now they have to start searching. You got to have people running in every door and every building to figure out where is this person. And if it wasn't someone, and I'm assuming that this was some type of crime related to that vehicle, maybe not, but stolen vehicle was my assumption. But what if that was a person with a gun running on a school? You got a major problem now. So this is one of the reasons why I think we need to dedicate more resources to safety like this and not less. And I would ask that you bring this back at the first possible moment that you can. I want to thank RPD. I don't know where this idea generated from.
RPD gets all the credit.
And they deserve every bit of it. So I want to thank RPD for coming up with it and for being here.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Or make a comment and then ask a question. I agree with you. Fortunately, we have such a high level of trust with the city, with the police department, with the school district. We know this is going to work. But one thing that was contained in the presentation, but not necessarily highlighted, is there is an audit. So we will know not only its value, but we also have the opportunity to find any errors. And I don't think there'll be any misuse, but if there is, sort of fine-tune things. And that audit, again, from a civil liberties perspective, is very, very important. So process issue, I agree there's something we should get moving on. And I understand it's an information matter and not an action matter, but could we not just give direction to the superintendent to get the signatures at the earliest convenient and just bring it for ratification, or give him the authority to just go do it?
I don't know that we can give him authority to do it because I think it's got.
No cost, so it's under that.
There's no cost to it. It's certainly under that.
I think administratively we can give direction and just make life easier.
Yeah,
Or-
I think we can.
Or maybe give direction, and if we find that we need authorization, they can come back for ratification. And I'd be willing to make that motion when you're ready.
Go ahead.
So I would like to make a motion to obviously accept this presentation and give direction to the superintendent to go ahead and pursue finalizing the MOU and signing it on behalf of the district as an administrative matter. And if for any reason there is a obligation to have the board approve it, then just bring it to us for ratification quickly thereafter.
Can I, actually, I would like it to come for ratification
Okay,
in any event, if that's okay, if you would.
Oh, yeah, that's
if you wouldn't
fine.
mind changing that on your motion.
so changed.
Can I?
No, we're giving him direction,
Oh, okay.
and then it's gonna come back on an agenda for ratification.
Can I ask for one point of clarification since I'm going to be working on signatures? Julie brought up the idea of a 1 year versus a 2 year. Does the board have a preference on that?
Pete was right when he said there's a.
It's got a termination.
I didn't hear that.
Termination.
I didn't hear that. What you said?
He's asked about 1 year versus 2 year. Oh, you mean the part that Pete was wrong?
Yeah, the Pete was right. Yeah,
No.
I never hear that. So you know.
Okay, got it. Understood.
But yeah, I think I'd like it to come back for ratification in any event, just so we can, you know.
Actually, we don't need a motion then. We'll just general direction consensus.
Perfect.
Have at it.
Any objection? Perfect. You've got direction, and then we'll bring it back for ratification.
Thank you.
Okay. Actually, I forgot to ask, there were no speaker cards on that, correct? Barbara, okay. Okay, item number 6.1, budget, 45-day revision.
It's a little closer. Wait for the presentation to come up. The last couple years, we haven't had to do a budget 45-day revision. We typically, it's in place and required by the state if there's a significant enough change to our adopted budget based on the state's adopted budget. And so for this year, we met that criteria. Typically, we're knee deep in our unaudited, our closing the books for the year, and so that's our focus. And so this is a pretty quick presentation as far as what are some of the main changes from the state adopted budget, and then I'm going to go over just some of the details of some of the items that have come up and what we're thinking in cabinet. And so thought this would be a good time to talk about that. So when we adopted our budget in June, we adopted it based on the governor's May revise that was provided. Since then, the governor and the legislators negotiated, finalized their state adopted budget. And so you'll see on the left side what we adopted as part of our budget. And on the right side, you'll see some of the changes. And so these are the main changes. The biggest one, and I'll say most of these are very positive to the district. There's one negative that I'm going to talk a little bit about, but overall, a very positive impact to our budget. The first line is our COLA to the local control funding formula. The governor proposed a 10% COLA as part of his May revise. There's legislators were looking at 15%, some that they were proposing, and so they went pretty much right in the middle, about 12.84%. So that's a pretty positive direction, and those are ongoing funds, so that just kind of builds on our ongoing revenues for the district. Next is the one, I would say, the one negative in the budget. When the governor proposed in his May revise, there was one-time discretionary funds. It was quite a large amount across the state, and in the formula, it equated to about $13.3 million to our district. So when we adopted our budget, we had $13.3 million of money that essentially went to the bottom line. We were able to use it to pay for our increased pension expenses, our increased operation expenses. And so that was the one piece that, as they negotiated, that money essentially was brought, divvied out into two different grants that you're going to see below. Kind of going back to having these categorical programs where it's not just fully discretionary, but there are certain strings attached, certain things you can and can't spend it on. The first one is a grant that they called the Art, Music, and Instructional Materials Grant. This grant, based on the language, is fully discretionary. They have operational cost. It kind of goes back to what the old grant was that Jerry Brown used to do, which was we provide some money, and anytime people are asking, hey, we need money for pensions, use that grant. Hey, we need money for art and music, use that funds. Hey, we need money for instruction. Whatever it was, he said, I provided this big one-time pot, use it however you want. And there were no strings attached. And so this one is, it's kind of funny how they labeled it, but essentially it's fully discretionary, but we'll be able to utilize some of these funds to address some of the issues that we're going to talk about later, of increasing some funds to different programs. In instructional materials, we've got a lot of book adoptions that are coming up that we are already planning for. We could use potentially these funds for that as well. So, but that's $6.5 million that has a plan has to come, but it's pretty free. The Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, that is $5.7 million, and it's very similar to the current grant we have, the ELO grant, and so it's meant to address some learning recovery issues, and so that one has certain expenditure reporting and certain criteria. But we've had some conversations earlier today about how we can best utilize those funds. One of the nice things about that block grant is it goes till 27, 28. So some of the programs we're putting in place now, that's kind of the frustration with the one-time funds, right? You can't really sustain a lot of the work we're trying to do. Is ongoing work. And so at least having it go out to 27, 28, we believe we'll be able to utilize those funds for some relatively long-term projects. These last two are also very positive news. One was in regards to our ADA funding. We're funded based on our attendance. And over the last couple of years, our attendance rates have been, like across the state, a little lower than normal. We've had COVID issues, quarantine issues. And so when students are out more, that reduces the amount of revenue we generate. One of the things that's interesting is over the last couple of years, a lot of the districts, especially the large districts in California, are declining in enrollment. And so when their attendance goes down, what they did is they provided relief in that you can use last year's attendance number. And then the following year happened, you can use 2 years ago attendance number. Well, that doesn't really help us as much because we're a growing district. Our enrollment is going up. We're having to hire additional staff to pay for that growing enrollment. But yet when our attendance rate goes down, we don't see necessarily an increased revenue. So what they did for the 21-22 school year was allowed us to utilize our attendance rate that was based pre-COVID. So we used our current enrollment, which was higher in 21-22 than it was in 19-20, but use our attendance factor for 21-22. So that resulted in about $2 million for one time for 21-22 additional revenue that we weren't expecting. So that was a real positive for our district. And lastly, this one I was actually most excited about was our transportation. The transportation funding that we receive was based on formulas from the 1970s. And if you knew Roseville in the 1970s, it was a drastically different city, incredibly smaller. We probably had 1,000 to 2,000 students, where we have about 11,000 students now. And the formula gave us barely any money for transportation because there wasn't as many students to transport. And so districts have been pushing for an update to this formula. So what they did, and it got passed, was a minimum of 60% of the costs are going to get refunded. So your transportation costs through this new assembly bill. There are certain things that we're going to have to come up with a plan and certain items, but just to give you a number, our funding for transportation was $200,000 based on the 1970 formula. And yet our transportation costs are around $4 million. And so this will increase our funding for transportation by about $2.2 million. So of all the districts in California, we're probably one of the ones that'll benefit the most from this bill just because of how much we've grown since the 70s. So that one was a really excited development. Let's see. Moving forward. Did I press the wrong button or did I lose it? There we go. Here's the multi-year I presented to the board back in May. And so I won't go through all this in detail, but essentially you'll see that the numbers look a lot better. There's an error that I'll point out here in just a bit. But really we were looking at the 22-23 school year. That was the focus of updating that budget. And you'll see some increases in the ongoing funding, but really some decreases in the one-time based on the loss of that $13.3 million. And while we still got some of that money back, those are going to be additional required expenditures. So you'll see in green kind of all the changes. What I'll just point out some of the errors is in the 23-24 and 24-25 under the LCFF ADA adjustment, that's really a one-time adjustment. And so those 2 future years, those won't be there. And so it's still very positive. We're looking a lot better in our multi-year projection because of the ongoing funding. Really the only downside you'll see is like that $13.3 million, you see a negative, or that's being taken out of the budget. And so overall, ongoing budget, we're in a much better shape than we were just a month or two ago. So it was a very positive budget, and we'll be able to go over in more detail at our next budget update, but I wanted to provide this 45-day update based on the state adopted budget. Also wanted to take advantage of this time to go over some of the items that have come up recently.
Ask questions and make comments on this part first.
Please, yeah.
So,
I think if we have questions, we just interrupt it. and
Yep,
ask
please,
questions,
anytime.
Right? That's with the budget stuff. I think before slides move on, and then interrupt if you have a question on this one.
so just
I
before,
don't know if you mind being interrupted.
I don't mind.
Okay.
so just before we go on, just a couple of comments and maybe a question buried in here. So I think the most important item is looking at what line number do we have it? BAB, which is the yellow first highlighted yellow line, and that's the change in deficit or surplus from
Yep.
each year. And I just wanted to make sure that we highlight the fact that if you go to the previous page, those numbers were significant, particularly in the first year, and then moderate, and then starting to get a little more significant again as we go out. And now when you go back to your other slide, those numbers turn positive, which is, that's something I'm concerned about every year as we're talking about that. Now, as we scroll down to the bottom of that page, I always want to ask about our limitations on reserve funding and the percentages, and you have the percentages here. The subtotal unassigned, which is the second from the bottom, so the 8.84, the 12.57, and the 17.94, is that the line that we have to worry about for the
Reserve cap.
non-carryover reserve cap?
Yeah, it actually would be the very bottom one, the,
bottom
ending
one,
fund
okay.
balance.
I knew it was one of those two.
Yeah, so that has to be below 10%. And so in 22-23, so you're at 9.4, so we're below 10%. Those future years, the number is going to be lower once I make those corrections, but we still will be above 10%. But those are items that we can be above 10% now. It's just when we adopt those budgets.
Right. I just want to point that out because we have, as we've all talked about, we have some big crunch times coming up at the end of this decade. And that's why we've taken steps to develop a trust fund and to put money that is locked away from Sacramento, but it also puts some handcuffs on us and future boards because it can only be used for specified funding. But it's important because we know what categories those deficit spending are going to be in. So seeing those numbers, I'm just very happy that those numbers are positive above 10 so that we can continue our commitment to funding that trust so that we know when every other school district is increasing class sizes and laying off staff, we won't be doing that because we've prepared ahead of time. So
No, thanks for pointing that out. And that's an item that we're going to be bringing up at the upcoming policy review committee, and as well as when I bring the unaudited actuals in September, is talking again about some potential additional contributions to our pension trust. So that'll be coming up very soon that we can start having some more conversation on that.
So that was just my editorial comments and a couple clarifications.
I
Thanks.
appreciate that. I actually, if I can piggyback off of what you said, Pete, we have historically had large numbers on the bottom line, and what it has allowed us to do, and we now have a cap of 10%. We used to not have that cap. Sacramento put a cap in place. The benefit of having a large number on the bottom line is that when tough times come, and you were, I think, Pete, referring to some of the high pension costs, right? When recession hit in 2007-8, we were able to utilize the funds that we had there, plus cutting back in some other areas. We were one of the only districts that didn't lay off a single teacher. Not one. Not one. Now, that doesn't mean that when some left, we didn't backfill, right? But we didn't lay off a single teacher. And I still remember when 300 and some odd notices were sent by one district, and I don't know how many were sent by, by all of our neighboring districts and partner districts, and we didn't lay off any. And so that's, this body has always been a fiscally prudent, and I don't want to take any credit for it, Joe. I think your office, you and your predecessors have had that mindset. We've all had that mindset, and we're in a great place because of it. So, although I'll take some credit for it.
Sure.
So, anyway.
Any other
Please.
questions on this first half before I jump into the next section?
No, go ahead.
And so since we're talking about budget, I wanted to take this opportunity to do a little bit of education or a little bit of insight into kind of the site-based budgets, how it's developed, what we kind of go through. And so some of these documents that I'm sharing are, why is that? These are the documents we actually used. And so our site-based budget, this is a kind of a snapshot of when John and I, the superintendent, and I meet with each principal and we go over the site-based budget plan. It's at a pretty high level. And so what you'll see on the top is, and this is an example from Granite Bay High School, you see a dollar amount per student. So there's that $143. And that's a variable amount that is basically that 143 times whatever their enrollment is. So at this time, we're projecting enrollment of 1950, and that gets to the bulk of their budget of the $278,000. Now, what that number will do is as the year opens and enrollments are finalized, this number will actually get updated. So if their enrollment comes in, they actually have 2,000 students, they'll get the benefit of an extra 50 students. Or same if their final enrollment was 1,900 or 1,800, they'll see a reduction in their site-based budget based on what their final enrollment is. And then below that, what you'll see is a number of other fixed dollar amounts. Now, these are items that have come and gone over the years based on the different needs throughout the schools. But what I was really focused on these are core things that are, whether you have 500 students on your campus or you have 2,500 students on your campus, it's meant to be you have this fixed cost. One I'll mention because it came up over the last 10 years, you see NOXI safety equipment expenses, $13,000. That was something that when the football helmets started becoming requirements by state law that they had to be replaced every year or they had to be reconditioned, they had all these requirements in order to have a football program. So if we didn't fund those replacement of the football helmets, we were not allowed to have football, or we would illegally doing football, and anytime there was an injury or something happened, we'd be liable for not making sure. And so that was an item where our principals came to us and said, hey, we need some additional funds. This was a cost that was never part of our site-based budget, but it's pretty significant and we need help with that. And so every year, sometimes we'll have items like that. Security is another one. We started having issues at times. Some of the board members may recall when we had a prank on the Roseville High School campus and someone lit fire to the football field and the stage. And it was a prank that went very, very bad and was very inappropriate. But we, even before that, we were giving sites funds. We said as an administration level, we want you to hire security before graduation. And so we're going to give you the funds to do that. But every weekend and before and after graduation, hire security through the night. And so we gave them the funds to do that. But yeah, they're the ones who manage it all. And so those are just some examples of one-time add-ons that we put to their budget. One I'll just mention too, that highlighted one is WASC. When a site goes through WASC accreditation, there's additional costs. That happens once every 6 years or depending on what type of accreditation they're under or how long. But they have to pay for people to come visit and stay in a hotel. And so we give them funds to cover that. Now, that's mostly what John and I talk about in that site principal meeting. And then myself and my accounting director work with the principal, a lot of it, the principal secretary, to go through all the little lines of where that goes. And the way the state of California works, there's a lot of lines. It's broken out by, function, goal, department, and so John's not getting involved why did you only spend $649.32 on, that's where we work with them and we give them that big budget. And we go through these details and make sure and it's a helpful thing, as you can see these lines, this is what you spent 2 years ago. This is what you spent in 2021. Here's what you have budgeted. Maybe you don't need that much money. And so they can make adjustments, and they'll make adjustments throughout the year because something comes up. They need more money for computers or whatever. And so we don't usually get into the weeds with this. You know, we stay more at the high level, and we pride ourselves in funding our school sites very well. And we want to make sure that we continue to fund them very well because we don't want the sites having not able to do stuff they need to run their programs. I know there are other districts around here that they're having to ask constantly for help from parents. We still do that, and we have a lot of generous parents, but for our core school sites, we want to make sure they have the funds to be able to provide a great program. So this is just an idea of some of the things we've talked about of potentially changing, trying to simplify this site-based budget, and calling out some programs that some of the VAPA programs that we've talked about that you'll see on the very bottom. I put VAPA programs, instruments, materials, etc., and putting $10,000 in. Calling out that some of those athletic contributions, putting them all into one category, and I put it at that $41,500. And really making sure that some of those programs, whether you have an enrollment of 2,000 or enrollment of 500, we're funding your base program and making sure you have the funds to do that. So that's what we're talking about, Cabinet. What that exact dollar amount is, we haven't determined. We've got one of the grants that I talked about earlier. We could potentially use some of that to increase some of the funds in those programs. One of the other items we're talking about, I put a couple here, is our site bus mileage. That was a concern that came up. Generally, a number of our sites don't go above our allotment. We give 3,500 miles on the bus each year for field trips and some of the athletic events. Typically, the majority of our sites haven't gone above that. Last couple years have been tricky with COVID. They haven't been able to do as much of that, but it's coming back. What we've talked about at a cabinet level is increasing that to 5,000 and putting a minimum towards band. What we've seen is a number of our sites have focused a lot of that. The initial need was athletics, and band has a really high need as they have really big programs and a lot of students that would often use the bus. And so we're talking about potentially putting a limit on our minimum that can only be used towards band.
Can I ask you a question about this? Does
Yep.
that, when you say bus mileage, does that include like those vans that we've leased from Enterprise that are on each site?
So the van,
is that just buses?
that's just buses. The
Okay.
vans, actually, we put a limit before I even came here, and no site has ever come close to that limit. So we've just kept it. They can use the vans as much as they want, and there's no limit to the van mileage. So that hasn't been an issue. Some of the sites prefer to rent out charter buses, so that would be on their own if they decide to do something like that. But we provide our buses, and as long as they're available, and that's where we're talking about the potential of the 5,000. One other item is, and this is an item we're working with a lot of our school sites, is their carryovers. And so this number, while it seems a lot, $400,000, it's actually down than it has the last couple years. And so we've been working with our principals and administrators to help them understand their budgets, understand their carryovers, and make sure those funds get spent on the current year's students. And so sometimes there is a need for a carryover. You want to, you wouldn't leave your bank account dry at the end of the month. And so there is a purpose for that, but we're helping them manage those carryovers and kind of reduce it to a smaller amount. But one of the items we've talked about in the past is limiting the amount of carryover each year, like a percentage of their budget. We were going to implement that pre-COVID, but we decided to hold off on that based on some of the struggles that we had throughout COVID, where some of those department expenditures were no longer needed and there were a lot of changes. And so that's something we're continuing to look at, but we thought it would be best to initially work with all of our sites and make sure they're utilizing their funds. So those are some of the ideas that we've talked about in cabinet, and that would come back later because this is not a normal budget update. We're still, like I said, still trying to close out last year's books, get the final numbers for everything, and then we'll start working on the latest update to the next year. Last piece, the September 8th, that's when we'll bring back our final unaudited actuals for 21-22. And then just in December is when we have our final audit report for 21-22. And that's our first big budget update for 22-23 called our first interim report. Yep.
right there. So when you say new proposed sample site based budget, and it says 22, 23, we're talking about implementing this for this current school year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we could, and we've done that. We've made adjustments during the year. We feel like these aren't going to be significant adjustments, but little enhancements. They would all be positive to the school sites. We're not going to make any change that's going to provide them less funding, but we believe we can provide them some additional funding and make it a little cleaner and more transparent.
What is health services?
I believe so. That was. It's funny. Some of these go back, predate me, but yeah, for nursing costs.
Isn't that a salary cost?
It's they have materials
Yeah.
for the health centers.
Yeah, one of the items, and I didn't really talk about it much, was the libraries. The library costs were generally funded at the school sites.
Yeah.
We've since moved to a district library services, and so we've been talking, and that's one of the plans over the next few months as we make adjustments. Is we're going to pull that off of the site's responsibility, and then it'll be run through Ed Services, and so all the librarian expenses will go through Ed Services, and then the site, so we'll kind of be shifting the money of where, but it's a little more efficient, especially with the way the program's running now.
Thanks. As one of the new folks up here, I know site budgets have always seemed to be a little black spot where I didn't really have much insight as to what transpired there, which is, I've shared my concerns because ultimately we hold the budget responsibility and we see the big numbers and then it's hard to understand where it all goes. And so this is helpful. I do know that it's not 100% picture because personnel costs aren't really reflected, and we know that most of what we do is personnel costs.
Yep.
I think it's a good step in the right direction for us to, one, answer a lot of questions from the public, two, help us understand what we're approving and where the money's going. I would love at some point in the future that we were able to essentially get these different pictures that we could just take the 10 pages and add them up and they'd match that other one.
Yeah.
Because I'm used to, and I know I've shared this with Joe, I'm used to a city budget where, it's 1,800 pages and all that's in there in way too much detail. We were trying to get rid of detail. And then we come here and it's kind of the opposite, less detailed. Somewhere in the middle, there's a happy medium that we can get to where we can have a lot of flexibility at our sites to do what they need to do because they're the experts. They're the ones who know their campus, but we can fulfill our responsibility to oversee the budget, and the families and the students know where their money's going. And when we have issues of unequal attribution of money, we can work on it, bring it together. So I'm just thankful we're getting there. I hope that we keep making progress in this direction. So thanks.
Yeah, we'll continue to provide some more information on the education side of kind of how we do things, as well as try to start providing more information that hopefully not too much, but not, get more to the middle that you're looking for. So.
Okay. Students, any comments, thoughts?
I'm good.
You good? Marla, any comments or thoughts?
I asked Joe my questions earlier this week, but I appreciate all the work that you've done here because I know this has come up over and over again about how things are working at the site. So thank you.
Sure. Anytime, please reach out for questions. Happy to help.
Easy question, I hope, and you probably said it, but can you explain why? So where it says base budget per enrollment, and like that one for Wood Creek's 140, but then like on that previous Granite Bay one, it's 143.
Yeah.
Where does that base budget per enrollment number come from? Or is it different for each school?
It's not different for each school. So it's funny, Marla noticed that too when we chatted.
You guys went through
That was
okay.
What I was working on, and what we're still in process is that library piece. Since we're pulling that off to be funded directly at, what is that dollar amount per site? And so since so we'll get to like a dollar amount, and maybe it's 142, 145, but that's the same at every comp site. So there's that variable piece that will be the exact same, and then there'll be that fixed piece. And then there's times where, as an example, I didn't put Antelope up here, but we provided some additional funds because they didn't have any restrooms at their stadium. And so we provided, and that was something that the principal brought up. And so until we build which you've probably seen the stadium, all the construction going on, until we built the stadium restrooms and snack bar and everything there, we provided a few $1,000s for them to bring in porta potties for football games because they didn't have the same restrooms that the other sites had. So there'll be certain things that'll be at each site, but generally trying to keep consistent.
Thanks.
Any other comments? Pete?
Oh, sure.
The total site-based budget for all the campuses as a percentage of the overall budget is, how much percent would you
Yeah,
estimate?
so let's see. So we're looking at probably about $2 million, somewhere around that range, and we have a budget of 150 million. So, I think it was Pete or Scott, one of you said that the bulk of our costs are salary and wages. So if you have 2 million over 150, it's like 1%, a little over 1 to 2% of the costs, and so 80 to 85% of our costs in any year are salary and benefits. And then some of our other big costs, we have instructional materials, the books and supplies and other services.
I just find it fascinating that it's like 1 to 2%
Mhm.
of the entire budget goes split amongst 6 campuses, 6
Mhm.
comprehensive.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it.
But that,
But you do it well, I guess I should say.
yeah, I mean, that really, it's a people business. I remember
Yeah.
my predecessor said, your job is really assistant superintendent of people services because it's
For
schools
sure,
is a
but
people
tools
business.
for people are important as
Yeah.
well. Tools and systems, but-
Yep.
Yeah.
And then this is more, there's a lot of expenditures that you see out there that we handle as a district. If you think about like technology, purchasing all the Chromebooks, all of that, that's something we do as a district. And so this is more of like the spending cash, right? For your departments and
Right,
stuff where they, the day-to-day stuff.
So, I'm sorry.
No, it's just not a lot, and I just it's no criticism or anything. It's just not a lot, and to use to do these things, right? Like athletic allocation of $41,000 with all the athletics we have on every single campus, right? It's just not a lot.
That doesn't even pay for the officials for a year.
Well, right. So the athletic, so I would say the athletic trainers doesn't fall under this,
No.
right? That's separate. That's the
Yeah, so
people-
there
that's the
really
people
is
part of
so
the
many
business,
things
yeah.
that are not. This is, yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting how this is pulled away, like how this gets pulled off. Like these are not little categories, right? There's all these other categories that
Yeah.
we don't see in this.
Yeah.
This is like the extra for those specific
It's more of the
categories.
flexible stuff they do with site
Yeah.
discretion.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of other funds that, and hopefully I can provide some more information. For the future, we've got student body accounting, where we have a lot of, and you got the gate funds that get generated for, football, basketball, the athletic events. Boosters provide funding. And so there are a lot of other funds and resources. So
And there's no carry forward if it's unspent, right? In this area.
There is.
Oh, there is. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's the
Okay.
carryover stuff.
400,000 carryover.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
So one more question. I am surprised to see computer repairs on here because I would have assumed computer repairs would be a district expense. I mean, you can't have teachers without functioning computers.
Yeah, that's probably an old one. We should just I don't know,
Now, if this
keep
is,
them that 3,000 and put in another one because I don't think we're covering all computer repairs at the site.
again, I'm surprised to see it now. I could see if it was something like computer optional stuff.
Yeah,
I
it's
know-
like that. It's more of a optional, like if I wanted to put a big LCD TV out in the lobby,
Yep.
you could use that budget.
Okay. Yeah.
So it is for buying other stuff as well.
Okay, and see that's why I thought that name may not capture it. By the way, I visited Antelope High School, and one of the teachers presented me with a lovely black and white photo of it was the teacher of the year last year, and it was sort of a tongue in cheek. He's like, I've been asking for a new color laser printer for years, and I looked at it and I'm like, I love black and white. What's wrong with black and white? It's classic. I'm not sure he appreciated that comment, but that would be somewhere where if someone had a specific request, hey, I'd love a new color printer, can we use,
So that would come out of their department. So like if it was math department,
so that's not even these funds.
they would go to their math department chair and say, hey, we want to get new printers. Then so departments get budgets too.
Okay.
So then they would do that. These are all fluid. These things move throughout the year to different accounts. You can move this stuff all over the place. So all those things are, that's why I said these are all really site discretionary.
Yeah.
And they change year to year on how they use them.
But okay, but I know the action that's requested is that we approve this. If we,
I'm not seeking approval on the budget changes.
Okay.
Really, the action is only on approving
45.
the 45-day budget revision.
that was,
And really, I was bringing up some of these items just to collect input, see if we're on the right track. Some of the items we've talked about in cabinet, if the board is supportive or wants us to do anything different, because we eventually would bring back some of these changes at our next budget report.
can you move forward to, no,
Backwards?
no, what, back to the 11, page 11.
11.
Right
Yep.
there. I don't know how my colleagues feel. I feel great about increasing mileage to 1,000 or to 5,000 with a minimum for band, which is again programs that are just transportation heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. I'm in full support of that. I don't know. There were some others. Were there some other items you were looking for direction?
The other
I don't
one,
know.
because before,
I don't know how
back
my
in the
colleagues feel
beginning,
about it.
we had an old grant that went away, but we kept giving funding to the sites, art, music, school, and library grant of $1,000. So some of these are just old. And
Yeah.
so what we thought we would potentially do is give them like $10,000 or something like that, that this is for your core program. There's still a lot of you're still going to get the $140 per students, and the sites would use that to provide funding towards whether it's drama or those different programs. But
So how do we, okay, and here's the other question I have. So you look at VAPA programs, let's assume that this was put in place. How do we assure that those things get spent in the appropriate categories and they're not, I understand some were spent at some schools and some weren't spent at other schools, and then you have this disparity. And so how do we ensure that this stuff gets spent in the right categories? Or is that the $1 million problem we're trying to solve?
it is, I mean, I think it's just,
Or maybe a multi-million-dollar problem?
Part of it is, I mean, that's the intention, and I think most principals know that. I think that's what'll happen a lot of times is, so VAPA, so just say performing arts, sometimes you'll say, here's $20,000 for performing arts. The department every year will decide who really needs it that year. So they divvy it up. One year it might be band, the next year it's drama, the next year it's choir, the next year it's dance. Every site is different and every year is different. Now sometimes there's specific needs, and they'll take part of that plus their $280,000. They'll take money from that because there's a specific urgent timely need. And again, it could be performing arts, it could be athletics, it could be your Project Lead the Way, it could be Avid, it could be anything. But every year it's something different, and that's where the site leadership teams get together, the department coordinators get together, and they kind of work through all that and establish that budget at the site. So this is really more of a site discretionary budget. But they also know, because we've been talking, it's, our extracurricular and our co-curricular programs are very important to us, especially now that after the last few years. And so how are we working on those programs? And sometimes they have specific needs they bring to us. And depending on the mood Joe's in, sometimes they'll get some extra money above and beyond this. But again, with all the grants and things we have, we've been utilizing those for these programs.
I would say that's another reason for some of those carryovers is the site. We have these grants that have to be spent by a certain date. So some of that is using those grants to do these projects where in the past they would use these discretionary funds.
So I'll give you examples. So like when Richie Hodge was here, he was my band director. I said, Richie, I got 10,000 for you. He'd say, you know what, give it to drama. I don't need it this year. Next year I will. This year I don't. Give it. So you would hear things. It's very discretionary and very collaborative at the site level.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments? Any
A motion when you're ready.
speaker slips on this one? No. Okay, any member, I'll open it up. Any member of the public wish to address the board on this item? Please.
That's all really great and super positive. I love the busing. My only concern with this model, and I love it, I don't want it to go away. I'm not saying that. My only fear would be then a principal may see, oh, great, VAPA is getting 10 grand from the set funding. I'll just go by my example, give 8 grand to that department. I don't have to give them that money anymore. So I'm just afraid that a principal may have the discretion to, this is already set by the district. I don't have to fund it anymore. That's my only concern. Something I'd want to just have on people's radar so it doesn't happen. Because I would want it to be an addition, because I think that's the intent coming here.
Go back to that slide. Jim.
Yep.
I think that is the intent, that 280,000 line.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
No, I think the intent in this room is there. I just want to make sure that intent leaves the room.
I think I look at it as those other columns are minimums.
Oh, yeah. But do you see what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah. So I completely agree with the intent in this room. This is super positive. It makes me super happy. I just want to make sure that intent is carried out by the principals and not seeing this as, oh, great, I don't have to budget for this out of my site budget anymore. So yeah. But no, I really appreciate it.
And I think, Pete, you were going down that road when you said that middle ground of what the site budget versus the big 30,000 foot budget looks like. So that would be a little bit of that process.
But no, thank you very much.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, is ready for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the 45-day revision report.
All right, motion by board member Constant. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Who wants it? Second by board member Hirota. Does this require a roll call vote or? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any oppose? Any abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Reminder to get a student distributed.
Oh, I forgot to ask student words first.
Tally that as one over there, just put it on the table.
Yeah, sorry. That's right.
How many
Count that
days
as-
since the last
count that as the
incident?
first one. Item 6.2, district office, new building lease, leaseback solicitation, authorization.
Yes, this item is me as well. And so just to frame the conversation a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it over to our architects from Rainforth Grau Architects, and they're going to be presenting some information. I wanted to provide a little bit of history in regards to our district office. This is first want to get an update on where we are in our design process to collect make sure we're on the right track. And wanted to, at the end, we'll talk about get further authorization on to solicit a leaseback provider. But just as a history, kind of like I mentioned earlier about 1979 transportation, this district office was built in 1989. You can see the square footage there. The only comprehensive high schools we had at the time were Roseville and Oakmont. So both of you guys over there, your schools weren't even built. And so we were less than 3,000 students at the time. We are now almost 11,000 students across the district. So we've grown a lot. This has been a need for a very long time, and we've prided ourselves in the district of really, when we have facility dollars, to prioritize those towards site needs first. And so when we passed our bond, a lot of it was, let's get that to the sites, and really focused our attention on that since I've been here, even though this need has been here for many years. The problem is there's always going to be site needs. So there's always going to be constant facility needs that need to be addressed. And so we felt that this was the right time, and we get approval to proceed with the board on this project. One of the main objectives, or some of the main objectives, was really centralizing all of our district office services. Throughout the growth from less than 3,000 to 11,000 students, we've had a lot of additional employees, haven't had space to put them at the district office. So the Ed Services Department's the best example, where there are employees that are at, a lot of them at PDC, which is on the other side of the Oakmont football field. We've got a lot of special ed employees that are at Challenge High School, which is over by Wood Creek. We've got a number of employees at Independence High School, which is right by Roseville High School, all part of the same department. You've got even my department. We've got a lot of accounting services that are in a portable that was added later. We've got my maintenance and operation and facilities there by Roseville High School. We've got food services outside of Oakmont. We've got transportation that's near Roseville High School. We've got technology by Roseville High School. So we're all over the place. And so it really is inefficient in a lot of ways. Some of the other, and so one of the main objectives of this is bringing as many people into the same room so we can improve efficiencies, improve collaboration. Lack of meeting space. This is our biggest district meeting space, which when we're having a meeting with like administrators, assistant principals, we can really maybe fit like 40 or so in here, depending on if we have tables or whatnot. And a lot of our groups have grown beyond 40. You know, if we bring all our counselors and support, you know, it becomes really difficult. And so we have to go to the school side, or we've been doing a lot of our events at the grounds. And so it would be really nice to have a meeting space here that could address district-wide events, not for all of our employees, but at least for a lot of our bigger groups. And then we saw our undersized boardroom. It had been an issue before COVID every now and then. When we had a controversial topic, we'd have to move to the Oakmont cafeteria. But we saw firsthand how undersized this facility was and unprepared we were. We made it work, but it wasn't without a lot of resources, you know, tech services, having to set up, you know, Zoom, you know, how we're going to do it. And it took hours and hours before every board meeting to set up, and then another couple hours to tear down. Whereas most boardrooms have a fixed setup that is much more efficient. So I just want to kind of give that a little bit of history, and then I'm going to turn it over to Terry over at Rainforth Grau, who's who's going to. Yep.
I just wanted to mention, you know, Heidi and I served on the facilities committee last year, and we had quite a bit of discussions about this. And I know we brought some things up that we asked you to address, which I'm happy to see have all been addressed here. But I thought I'd just give some context, because not many people come to those great committee meetings and miss out on it. Some of the things we talked about is when we're looking at sort of the dispersed staff and bringing them together, really weighing not only the efficiencies, but the time and the mileage and the liability of having people drive their personal vehicles back and forth, looking at that. As we look at the building itself, to really look at function as much as form, and particularly as it comes to the discussion between 1-story and 2-story, knowing that 2-story buildings cost more, but also balancing that with the continual need for parking, both for the facility that we're building, but also for the adjacent school, both during school and during activities. We talked a lot about the boardroom and sort of the transition we've made to having more technology used during our board meetings, and how if we ever get to a point where we have to have virtual meetings again, that's something that we really want to have built in, instead of sort of patching it together the way we've done. I think we've done a great job getting there, but as we move forward, really making the space functional. And the other thing we talked about is really making sure that it's designed in a way that the public gets the best use of the building when they're coming to the meetings, when they're having activities, because these rooms will also be available for community use and other things. So those are just some things that we brought up to make sure that we felt were important from a board perspective to be addressed. And I'm very happy to see almost everything we talked about has made its way into here.
Yep. Thank you for bringing that up, Pete, too. And we started with a little bit with the facility committee, but really felt that this is a big project that the entire board should be involved in providing that input. And so here we are today. So.
Thank you. I'm excited to give you an update. So kind of going back to where we started, we focused on 4 things in the process. The first one being getting to know your staff and your departments, and doing field assessment of all your existing facilities. Joe's already done, a pretty good discussion about the existing district office. Obviously, it's in need of an upgrade. And then identifying the needs of each department. Where are you at? How many staff do you have? What are you missing? What do you need? And then ultimately, we gathered all that data to review the options. So first,
we did the site walks, we toured all the departments, and then we went and we compared it to the as-built. You know, we're trying to identify how many square feet you already have, how many offices you have, how many spaces you have, and bodies, obviously. And so we quantified all of that into the basis for the discussions that we had going forward with the committees. So then we hosted several charrette meetings with many of you in this room. And we had the departments confirm their existing staff and their spaces to make sure that we were all on the same page of what existed. And then we had a conversation about what the additional growth needs were in each department, right? Because we're talking about, you know, improving a facility going forward, making sure that we're preparing not just for tomorrow, but 5 years, 10 years from now, and talking about that. And then also identifying spaces that, you know, from 1989 to today, what are lacking, right? And so we had that conversation, and the two primary things I think that were discussed was the boardroom size, flexibility, and a variety of different meeting spaces, and of course always storage, right? Always need more storage. And then we also just started talking about, because again, consolidation of departments, of, you know, who needs to work next to each other? You know, how does HR work with account services and, you know, SPED and ed services? So we had several meetings to do that. And then we took all of that information to calculate out what is the new head count that we need, what is the square footage that we need, to then review the options, right? So then we started looking at whether it made more sense to modernize this building and add on, or build all new. And so we did some studies. And so also the third piece would be, you know, is all departments coming into the space, or is it some of the departments coming into space? So the first analysis we did was a modernization and expansion for all departments moving in. And that's I'm gonna get my list. Sorry, it's a long list. Not following along. So human resources, accounting services, ed services, special ed, food services, the superintendent, IT, maintenance, and facilities would be all of the departments coming in.
Is this expansion up or out?
This is just
The proposed. I mean,
we haven't gone up yet. So
It
this
would
is
be, it would be an addition onto the existing building.
yeah. So the cost on the left would be this building with an addition on the back. The cost on the right, new building, didn't really identify single or two-story at this point.
yeah, no, I was just curious about the expansion. Does that mean going up?
Oh, no, out, right. And so the delta between the two is about $2 million. And then we also explored, because maintenance and facilities and IT do have their own facilities on campuses, what it would look to not have those within this expansion. And so that reduced the cost by about $7 million. And the conversation at the group was that ultimately that made better sense, so that money could then be reallocated to other capital projects within the district.
Yeah, just to add to that, that was a group we discussed in cabinet. We didn't see as much of a benefit of, you know, a lot of our maintenance facilities and technology are out at the sites. They're not, you know, essentially I go and meet with them, you know, on a regular basis, but and when we have a meeting, we bring them over here, but it's not as frequently like Ed Services, who's having regular meetings. And so for that, we thought to move forward without adding them because we didn't see as much bang for the buck on that.
Okay. So then the conversation about whether we're doing a modernization or all new, and as you saw the delta between even the two, it's about a $2 million difference between an addition and a modernization going to new construction. And so the conversation was that going all new was the best decision long term, because it gives you the ability to place all of the functions within the space where they belong in a building. You're not making do within a 7,000 square foot footprint and trying to plan in the future. We're able to plan in future growth and build in flexibility, and also being able to maximize the parking availability. And parking availability was a big conversation with Ed Services moving in. And so that's where going up also went into the conversation. And so this was just at the concept stage, you know, just a block. It's not a design of what if we built it a new building, single story, what would happen to the site versus a condensed 2-story volume. And so you can see on the right, the big white square, you know, of the savings of site area by going vertical. And so if we had gone a single story solution, Oakmont High School would have lost about 80 parking stalls, which we can't really afford to lose any stalls at all. You will also note that we are taking advantage of the dirt lot on the corner, and we will be improving that to increase the parking as well. So the decision was that it made sense to go vertical to have less impact on Oakmont High School and increase. Yeah,
Okay.
that was my comment.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Like,
We've
I
owned it,
didn't know
never
that you owned that.
utilized it for a long time.
Yeah.
Idea.
Yeah. So that increases our parking, and then there is some increased efficiency with a vertical model, with layout, with the departments and flow. So ultimately, as we went through the review options, the decision was to go without including maintenance, IT, and facilities, and then go all new, and then ultimately 2-story. And so where we are today, we have a 2-story model with parking laid out. And just as a conversation of parking, the current district office as is with Oakmont High School, there's about 506 stalls. With this new building, it drops a little, but not as substantially as it would have if it was a single story, because we are increasing the square footage, right? You have a 7,000 square foot building, and we're going up floor plate to about 12,000 square feet. So it does take up a little bit of area, and also the concession building is impacted the parking a little bit, but definitely an improvement over a single story. So just taking you through the layout on the first floor, there's predominantly educational services, and special ed is on the first floor, and you will see in the upper right hand corner towards the front and the entrance is the boardroom, right? So the goal with the boardroom is to have it as flexible meeting space as possible. It's able to be broken up into 3 rooms. During the day, it is the main training room for educational services. And then there is a conference room behind it that will be for closed session. There is storage further below it. And then on to the right, educational services with the cubes, and then offices looping around on the inside. And the goal there is to bring as much daylighting in and openness into the work environment, compared to some of these older facilities that have low ceilings and little light. Just to kind of highlight on the future growth of the departments, there is additional space within the floor plan for a future communications director, potentially a district council. There were a couple additional spaces added for the HR department, a space added for accounting services, 2 future spaces for ed services, 2 additional spaces for special ed, and 1 added space for food service. So that's kind of where we're at with future growth within the departments. And then another big conversations was, you know, the flexible workspace. And so this idea of hotel workstations have been introduced into the layout, and that's basically on-call reserved space, right? So maybe there's a counselor or IT person that needs to be working in the district office for the day. There's a cubicle that they can sit in and work during the day. And so there are 6 hotel cubicles on the first floor, and then 4 private rooms as hotel offices. They're the flexible offices for other district staff to come in if they have a meeting. And then obviously more meeting space was also a very big conversation piece. I hit on the boardroom. In addition, on the first floor, there are 2 small breakout rooms for meetings of maybe 3 to 4 people. Again, the larger conference room serves as a meeting room during the day, and then closed session for when there is a board meeting. And then on the second floor, I'll hit on the flex spaces first. There are 2 private hotel offices on the second floor, 1 larger conference room, and then 2 additional breakout spaces for meetings, 3 to 4 people. On the second floor, we have business services and, or I'm sorry, is it business or accounting services?
It's business.
Business, sorry. And HR on the left side with a shared cubicle row, again, all lined in glass for including daylighting into the space, lower partitions, promoting collaboration. Again, the idea is flexibility and engagement there. And so this is, you know, a rendering of what the front of the building is looking like. Trying to have a easily identified entrance into the lobby. The mass on the left is the boardroom, again, easily accessible for the public coming in, not only for board meetings, but also for community meetings or whatever they've reserved it for. And then you can see on the right, the fins are for shading the glass, but all the glass is in all the office workspaces. So all the cubicles are on the right side. And the idea was, again, between the materials and the design is to give its own identity, a little different than Oakmont High School, being the district office, and having a presence for the campus. And then this is a inside view of what that open space looks like on the second floor. Again, a light, airy environment for the staff here. So where we are continuing to develop our documentation and our design. Our target is to submit to the Division of State Architect by the end of October. Yes. And with the goal of starting construction in summer of 2023, which obviously we'll get to what Joe's going to talk about.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap it up, I know that some of the questions came up in regards to funding sources. This is strictly funded out of developer fees. So we get, you know, we talked a little bit about the general fund today. This is Fund 25, or developer fees can only be used on school facilities. And so these funds could not be repurposed for any like site program expenditures. It could only be towards facility at the site level. So this is would be utilizing Fund 25 developer fee money, which we continue to receive each year as houses get built and we see developer fees. The proposed construction methodology is leaseback, and I know that's a methodology that is separate from just taking the low bid. A lot of our larger projects, we've pursued leaseback contracts. What that does is it enables us to not only just consider the lowest cost, but consider a lot of other factors such as the contractor's experience and what type of projects they've done. And we want to potentially bring in a contractor early in the process while we're still in design. One of the items we look for is pre-construction services, so that they can kind of, as the design is still being completed, they can kind of give us input. Hey, have you thought of this? You could save money if you do this. And so, so that's a potential benefit of also doing leaseback. So, as we conclude this, wanted to get input and direction. Are we on the right track? Are there any other things you want us to address? And then ultimately to get approval to solicit a leaseback provider, which would still go through a very competitive process that would factor in cost and experience. So, yeah, with that,
Yeah.
Any questions?
Questions? We'll do questions and comments together. Questions, comments, students? You good?
When you're building this, they'll still be able to stay here while you're building. It's not.
Yeah, so one of it's going to take a little bit longer to construct. So the goal is that this is going to be occupied during construction. It will be built right behind it. Once that is built and occupied, then this will be demolished and the parking will come after.
Yeah, that was one of the benefits. Another benefit of doing, you know, if we were doing add-on, we would have some challenges for a while.
Serious challenges with
There'll
that
still be
facility.
challenges as it'll be noisy and messy, but
Yeah, we're probably going to need to do a little sound wall.
And I Googled what a leaseback was, so.
It's nice. It's very simple, right?
Yes.
It's a pretty common methodology a lot of school districts use.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Heidi?
Nothing.
Pete?
You know, I always have something to say. Thanks. I really, as I mentioned earlier, I appreciate where we've gotten from our early discussions. The one question I have, if you can go to slide 12, it's the proposed site plan.
Yeah.
My question is, did you consider siting the building in that upper right-hand corner so that it had a more positive street?
I'm gonna go out. Sorry, go ahead and answer your question.
A more positive street impact, and I know it would be tight with the corner of the building there, but looking at the footprint,
This is your problem.
yeah,
Yeah. It would fit in the corner.
it doesn't fit, huh? Okay. One of the things in going through designs, site plans and buildings, we did a lot of that in city planning, is, that sea of parking as you're walking down the street, and it's not considering or giving enough weight to the pedestrian environment and how people interact with the building, both walking by, and also the logistics of having large events and football games where you have people parking essentially on three sides of a building, and the mischief that sometimes happens when kids are walking down that right-hand access road and those type of things. And so there are no ways to avoid that design challenge of that corner there. I mean, so like when I look at this, we have a nice building with a bend in it. Is there a way to bend around this building? I just really think of an overall project, sitting up there in this corner would be a better experience for people who use the facilities, but also people who drive by the facilities, and really looking at it from a streetscape perspective.
Well, I don't think it will fit, but I would also say from a contextual feel, all of the surrounding buildings on this street are single story, and putting a 2-story in that corner will have a very large scale right up against the sidewalk. And so it will potentially take away that neighborhood community feel, because that's also been, a lot forever. So that would be a concern. It's definitely a more urban feel to have the parking or the building so close to the street, but I completely understand and agree with what you're saying. It really is the logistics of the existing building, and I don't think it will fit, because we also have the power lines that are running down the middle, and that would have to be addressed as well.
Okay.
I mean, we can take a second look at it, but we did, I think, like 4 or 5 different site layouts on what could we do, where could it go, how would it fit, and we felt that this was, really minimizing the impact. We have the bend in it to give you some space in front of the campus, right, or campus, the building. I'm so used to working on schools. For gathering outside of the boardroom if there's an event, to give some distance from the parking, right? And making sure that there's trees and greenery, again, to balance that, sea of asphalt, nobody wants that.
Questions for Joe, I think. What's the balance in Fund 25 right now? Do you know?
I don't know off the top. It's probably around the $40 million range, 30 to 40.
Okay. Then the next question is that can the interior, any of the physical improvements like desk space and everything, can you use Fund 25 for that?
We can for the equipment that's needed.
And has that been included in this cost, or is that just
This is just construction
just
costs.
construction
Yeah.
cost?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were starting to work on a budget for that.
FF&E,
We talked
yeah.
about it,
Okay.
but yeah, because that would be another benefit. We've got people with, especially my secretary Laura is always good at any free furniture, and so we've got a big hodgepodge of furniture. At the
I don't know.
district
You're gonna have a
office.
brand new building. I don't know if you want free hodgepodge for now.
No, the goal would be to get it and have a consistent, everybody has the same color
Yeah.
and, you know.
So I'm just I'd be curious in that at some point. And then the whichever model we go with in the cost, the construction cost, is that with anticipated end of project cost based on increasing cost inflation?
It does
et cetera?
factor in escalation.
Okay.
It is obviously a preliminary budget at this point. We would love to get a contractor partner on board to validate. They have, you know, better
You
real
make that
time
comment.
Okay.
trends. The bidding market, as you all know, has been very volatile the last few years, and so it's, you know, we hope it's a good, solid, conservative number right now.
Yeah. When you say
We hope it's lower.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. What you called it escalation? What percentage did you put in for that? Is like 5-10% or just?
I was using 8%.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Question, have you interacted with the neighbors at all? Do we need their approval? Are we expecting any issues?
Oh, you gotta talk to that neighbor.
That one neighbor.
Okay.
So the property line.
Yeah, we talked to them. They've been actually mowing the little spot that's ours for a long time because it's kind of connected to their, you know, and they just, but yeah. But we
Probably
don't,
part of
we're
the
not
planning
required
process.
to. We own the land, but we have at least talked to them.
I mean, I can tell.
Interact.
I'm unassuming that there aren't windows. I mean, we're going second story, so that
Be different.
So the interesting piece is the front half, the northern piece. And I'm just. I don't know if there's this is the boardroom,
Yes.
and it's only 1.5 stories. So it's a single story, but it's a little bit taller than a single on that side. And all of the main office spaces are intentionally on the
The
Oakmont
windows.
side to try and reduce that sensitivity.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, it's a
Not
great
picketing
question.
Or anything.
That's probably part of the planning process through the permission.
Well, but we don't have to. But we're not getting their approval. I mean, that's. But
No, it's just good
we
neighbors.
just
Part of
consider
the
it
information.
good neighbor.
Planning information process.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I would think if we go forward with it, we would engage them to let them know, look, if they have any issues related to construction that we can help out with.
But we always do take into consideration.
Yeah.
If you look at West Park, the Grove building, and we get the 2-story.
Yep.
You notice on the back side, the neighbor side, we actually didn't put windows on that side.
Yep.
So we didn't want people looking into people's bedroom windows.
Good idea. Marla, to answer your question, schools are exempt from the permitting process. We send everything to DSA. We don't have to get permits from the city or permission. We get to build it.
DSA is usually much more complex or difficult than, but
And much
Sounds
more
like we've been considering.
much more
much more
expensive.
expensive. Yes.
The only thing I would say in this is I do want to be sensitive to all of our facilities and all of our different campuses. When I first was elected as a school board member in 2004, just kind of hard to say because it's been a long time. I was on the Roseville City School District. We met in portables, and I thought it was just fine, right? Because we had schools that had greater needs, and so I would hope, and I'm certain that this is the case. This is not a critical comment, but I would hope that all the materials that we would look at and all the things that we would do, make sure. You don't want to use ivory or with a marble or anything.
So we should take out the stained glass windows, or no?
Well, no, I mean, look, it needs to be functional, but not grandiose.
No,
Right,
and
and-
Pete made
and
that
that's-
very clear in our conversation.
Yeah, look, I have no doubt, and I didn't, and I was quite certain I didn't need to make that comment, but it is important. I mean, we've got one campus that's 107 years old, 9 years old, and 112. See, that's how long I've been here. I've been here like most of that time. And there are certainly some some critical needs there, and I just
No, completely understand it.
I
You know,
hope that
we've-
number comes in.
We've been designing, schools personally, almost 30 years, and totally understand the sensitivity of spending money outside of the classroom. And, you know, our intention is to bring a modern, refreshing, you know, new space to all of the support staff that support the schools, but sensitive to the expenditure of the money, for sure.
I do love the design. I think it looks great.
Thank you.
I really do. I will say, you know, I also love all the trees that are around it. That will, I know you got some big ones on the corner that's just a design thing, but from a functional standpoint, you want to make sure that those who are using that to drive daily, who are used to nothing on that corner, will still be able to have nothing on that corner impeding their view.
Completely agree. So two things on those trees on the corner are not existing. But yeah, the two things is the sensitivity on the neighbor's backyard. We are trying to maintain as many of these existing trees as possible. So we are trying to do that. We will definitely be sensitive to the sight lines. I've tried to make that left turn. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But we do have a requirement by the Green Code of a 50% shading of parking lots. So there will be more trees probably than you're used to seeing in your parking area.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. That I'm gonna flip over on an environmental component for just a minute. The greatest cause of global warming is the reduction of trees. 40 some odd years ago, we had 5 trillion trees in the world. Today we have 3 trillion trees in the world. Those are the greatest carbon dioxide sinks in the world, and we've cut it. What is that? 40%? If my math works out right.
Yeah.
So I think it's great to have, you know, trees and greenery. I think it's wonderful. Anyway, I like the design.
Thank you.
I know you went through the modernization, expansion, new building, and with and without maintenance facilities and IT. So I know we, again, talked a lot about the difference between modernization, taking this really old building and seeing what we could do in the new building, and with a cost difference that is less than 10%. It just doesn't make any reasonable sense at all for us to try and redo this with sort of the bad bones that we have. So I do think that the new building is the most fiscally prudent thing to do. And then just again, Joe, I know you touched on it, but with the all departments consolidated versus without maintenance facilities and IT, aside from cost, what I think I heard you said is operationally that's what's best for our district.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to see that an operational need meets the lower cost requirements as well. So, thanks.
Board members, what's your pleasure?
Staff and improve this.
Motion by Board Member Hirota. Is there a second? Second by Board Member Constant. Before we have the board vote, what do y'all think, students?
I like the idea.
No, maybe.
I know personally, whenever I'm in a classroom when there's like kind of really little windows or like outside exposure, it kind of makes it a little harder to work. So I feel like this is a good idea. It's a good improvement.
Yeah, I agree. I just sad that I'm gonna be graduated by the time it's built.
You'll be a board member by then, so.
Okay, we've got a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Oh, I did get your votes for, okay. I'm like, wait, did I forget that again?
There's someone in the back.
Oh,
We forget.
comment.
I just had a quick question. Is there any impact on the main street with how many extra parking spaces down here? And Kirby's already done that with the disaster getting in and out of here.
Correct. We're leaving the same current driveway as is. So there's no change to the driveway cuts onto Kirby.
So how many spots will be, how many extra cars? Because you're now you're gonna be.
There's no extra cars.
Fewer cars.
Oh, even with everything being combined?
Like 30.
By 30, there's 30 less stalls.
This is a 7,000 square foot building. The new
Oh,
one's gonna be
26,000.
26,000.
Yeah, so the new building's gonna be bigger, although it is gonna be
Right.
vertical. But the footprint will still be bigger.
Okay, I was just thinking of all the extra staff coming in and parking. It's already busy. Has anyone talked about lights, which I hate an idea of no lights? I don't know what the answer is, but it's just really difficult to get in and out of here. So it'll stay the same, okay.
Okay. Vote on that?
Yes.
Okay.
I was thinking the same
Thank you.
thing.
This will, we will solicit the RFP for leaseback, and that'll come back to the board once we have a proposed contractor. So,
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. and
thank you very
for being
much.
here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Terry.
Appreciate your help with the district.
Oh, no,
For this next one, go right to motion without a presentation.
Yeah, Joe, this next one is, item 6.3. We have read this one. I know it was emergency water line repairs. And does anybody have any questions about this?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Board Member Constant, second by Board Member Hirota. Student Board members, thoughts about an emergency water line repair? Good idea. Good idea for emergency water line repairs, right? I think that's. All in, actually, the resolution. we'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Constant,
Yes.
Ms. Franz,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Ms. Rhoda,
Yes.
and Mr. Huber.
Yes. 6.4, Adelante High School Portable Restroom Edition Bid Award.
Yes, so this is the project to add some portable restrooms at Adelante High School. We got 3 bidders, and staff recommends award of the bid to the low bidder, Shredder and Brandt, at $163,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Student Board members, how would you vote on this one?
Pass.
Yeah.
Good? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. 6.5, New Pacific Charter School, Roseville Agreement.
Okay, as you know, in February 10th, they approved the New Pacific School Roseville, their charter school petition.
And so we have been working with staff, especially over the spring and summer as they've been getting their facility lined up. They have launched with students. Appreciate Paul being here, Executive Director here in case you have any questions. But we have worked with our counterparts at New Pacific, also with legal, to provide this MOU that outlines our agreement as charter authorizer and charter school. And happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Any comments? What's your pleasure? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Board Member Constant. Second by Board Member Hirota. Students, what do you think? 2 thumbs up? You're good? Okay. 2 thumbs up. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, item 7.1, next regularly scheduled board meeting is scheduled for August 25 here at the District Administration Center, beginning at 6 p.m. for closed session, 6:30 for regular open session. Pending agenda items, I'm not going to review that, or I'm not going to go over that. It's there printed in the agenda for you. Although I would note that we do want the MOU added to that. So as soon as you can. Board and staff comments. Why don't we begin with staff down here?
I've been in the district long enough to remember when this building was new. I've been in the district long enough to remember when this was a dirt lot and I parked here in high school. So it's to see this thing go down, and I'll be parking in the same place I parked in high school. If it gets built before I retire.
Full
But it is
circle, baby.
exciting.
Full
Very
circle.
exciting.
These cars don't have horses in front
That's
of them.
right.
Well, just excited to start the new school year and all the energy. Really appreciate the team and the teacher leaders who stepped up to lead professional development last week. We welcomed a large number of new staff to the district. Just very exciting times. And briefly on day one, I had the opportunity to go to a couple of our schools, our oldest and our newest. So at Roseville High School, great energy, excitement, seeing the rally to kick off the year for the students. And then also over to Pathways, our newest program, combining our alt ed sites, and incredible to see students on campus engaging together, a lot of passion and fabulous engagement of the staff as they innovate and continue to provide pathways for our students. So kudos to all the staff across the district, and had a great time.
You guys heard enough for me today, so I'll pass.
All right, John, I'll come back to you. Students. Any comments? Any thoughts? This is
I
where you get to tell us about what's going on campus, whatever you want to tell us. Any activities that are going on, anything you want to invite us to. Don't have to invite us to anything, that's okay. But anything you want to let us know that's going on.
Yeah, I'll start. So our first day of school, we started off with our first day rally. We had our performers like dance and cheer go, and we loved. Thing at Antelope is when the freshmen are walking in, all the other classes already sat down, and as they're coming in and sitting down into the rally, we chant "We love freshmen," and we had a bunch of we had 20 posters just saying "We love freshmen" and we're happy that you're here, and it was just a really exciting moment to have because last year with our outdoor rally we couldn't do the same, and it was just a good feeling to be back in the gym and be back and have that school spirit once again. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what Antelope has in store for the rest of the year with Miss Cutts as our new principal and as Miss Bianco as our activities director.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think our first day of school also went really well. We had our guest speaker, Tyler Durman, which he was fantastic. I feel like he really created a sense of community already on the first day of school. A few years back, we decided to kind of move our first day of school rally actually to Friday. So ours is tomorrow, just because it kind of gives us more time to prepare. And it kind of works out a little better for the teachers because a lot of student government kids can actually go to their classes the first day. Whereas if we have the rally, then we have to miss that whole first day. So it gives us that opportunity, but kind of like Antelope, we're also planning on just really appreciating the freshmen and showing them that we care about them and showing them that it's a welcoming environment. And I mean, yeah, I think I kind of speak for both of us when I say we're really grateful to kind of be that voice for our student body and really represent our campuses as a whole. So just thank you for that opportunity and for kind of hearing us and our voices. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Laura.
Well, I'll say welcome, Felina and Alex. Nice to have you here. And it's nice to see the principals here. Thank you for, I know you used to be on Zoom, but it's just nice to see all of you present. I was able to attend both mornings of the personal development, and I'll put my parent hat on for a second. As I was listening to the guest speaker, I really appreciated how I just felt foundational that speaker just basic teacher training, and I hope the teachers came away with a lot of great discussion because I just appreciated everything he said. Just the perspectives of challenging the kids to work harder in the classroom than the teachers, but very wisely. So I appreciate all that you put on and did for them.
I'm just excited for the new school year, and I have to tell you, Mrs. Voss, I went home and I downloaded you gotta win no matter what. Like the way you guys did that with the posters, it was watching all the schools perform their songs was really, really fun. I showed my son your guys' Sweet Caroline presentation. Yep. I wasn't a judge, but I agreed. Those two were tied for the first. Yeah, they're so good. How are we gonna pick? You know, it was you guys. It was really fun to watch and really exciting. And my sophomore is super excited that he's got a pet turtle in his class. Last year there was a cat named Bear, and there's now a turtle named Jeffrey, I think. So, there. So we did get an invite for, I think, a back to school night at Wood Creek or something.
Yep, Wood Creek.
Okay, so I'll be excited to attend that and just get back on the campus for some of the tours. So it's looking good. It's exciting. That's about it.
Well, I would say the best part of the sing-along contest was watching Roseville High School stand up thinking they won, and Roseville Adult School actually winning. So for me,
they both won.
Yeah, I mean,
Co-win.
I know, but that was from the other side. That was quite a sight. So we appreciated that. I enjoyed going to the PD days. Sad that we had to make you guys come out in the evenings. We were trying to give those back to you and not have to be at all the board meetings. But happy to see your smiling faces. So thanks for being here. I wanted to say that I know I've said this before, but the state was wrong on school start times. and all I've heard is complaints from parents, from elementary school, from our high schools, from our middle schools. I have to keep reminding them that we didn't want to do it either. And I live very close to several schools, and it's a nightmare. And so, Becky, I don't know if you happen to try to get between you and Chilton. You know, yeah. So it's just a reminder that those folks in Sacramento really don't know what's best for us, and just a reminder that we all need to continue to advocate for local control and local decision making so that we can serve our residents, our students, and our families properly. The only other thing I wanted to say is I had an opportunity to go down to Southern California to go to the charter school authorizers event. April and I went. I would highly suggest that all of you have an opportunity to go at some point. It was one of the more informative, probably the most informative seminar I've been to. A lot of times you go to these seminars and you're just waiting for them to get to the point or get to something that's going to be useful. And I found almost every single thing there useful. And I know that April used some of the things that we learned in helping craft the new MOU, and hopefully that was worked out well for you guys on the other side. But I'll tell you, it was just very enlightening to see that we all talk about sort of this perspective on charter schools when it's time to either work with them, approve them, evaluate them, or whatever we're doing, and to see that broader perspective and see everything that goes in. And I really gained an appreciation for what our board's obligations are in the process and what we should be doing. And I would just highly suggest to the others of you, if you have an opportunity to go, it will be well worth your time.
They're not here, but I'm so excited to welcome the graduating class of 2026 because they are starting this year. So that's pretty exciting. And for the class of 2023, take it all in. It's like the first last day of school, the first last Christmas break, all those things that are going to happen this year. And welcome. Thank you both so much for volunteering extra time to do this. I hope you get great benefit out of it. Use this all as resources just to learn and speak up. So be a pleasure working with you both. Also, Mrs. Fork, thank you. I am really hopeful like you are. I think it's going to be an exciting year, and I hope it is. We're returning to normal. Like it feels sort of like that. So I don't want to say it too loud, but hope we're in it together. And Roseville PD. I'm excited that have them on board as a collaborative partner, and also looking forward just to working with this great group of people in the district for this year. So that's all I have.
Just two things. First, just want to thank Rob Hasty on all his work on school safety, from the threat assessment, policies and practices he's been working implementing, and now this with Roseville PD. It's getting so popular that the county and other districts want to start utilizing his services and finding out the work he's doing. And there's a lot of busy work behind the scenes. So, but I just, it's a lot of work and a lot of collaboration with community resources. And he's, like I said, behind the scenes doing great work with that. And then most importantly, the last 3 weeks, there's been a lot of events: new teacher orientation, admin kickoff, PD days, start of the school year. And we are truly blessed to have an amazing team here at RJUHSD, from cabinet down to custodians and everybody in between, to get this school year started right with all the events, the welcoming of our students, student government kids at 5 a.m. on campuses running around. I mean, there are so many things that have to happen to have a successful start to the school year, and hundreds upon hundreds of people making that happen. And to see that go just makes me very grateful that we are off to a great school year. I had an assistant principal tell me it feels like it's been about 10 years since we've had this feeling. And it's only been a couple, but it feels like it's been 10. But people are recognizing that. Like Ms. Fork said, there's a great energy. Teachers have been really excited, and all the interactions have been real positive. So let's just keep the momentum going.
finish with a couple of thoughts. First, principals, it is great to see you here. We have missed you, and it was great to have you home for a while, but we love to have you, love having you back, and welcome back to campus. I did watch all of those videos, and I thought the celebrity appearance from the Roseville High School Tiger was a nice touch. I know that
Tiger went missing
I know the tiger went missing. I cannot confirm or deny that I have any knowledge about the missing tiger, but I did think the celebrity appearance that was in the video was awesome.
But we do thank you that we get a new mascot.
It was happily returned wearing a different jersey. All a good fun. All a good fun.
Well, turnabout is fair play. So, one housekeeping item, students, just so you're aware, if we ever have a board meeting that goes beyond 9 o'clock, you are welcome. Of course, this isn't North Korea. You're welcome at any time to get up and walk out, right? But we invite you to get up and walk out at 9 p.m. because school starts early, not as early as it used to, but it still comes early. And you're welcome to make any negative comments about the late meeting on the way out if you want. That's okay too. But I forgot to mention that before, so I've got that in my notes. I want to mention it now. I did. It is awesome to be back. I can't remember what day it was. Saturday, I think it was. I was at the paint the parking lot for the seniors at West Park High School, and they had some. I went there early. I couldn't sleep. So I got up early, and I noticed that. What's the guy's name with the beard? Ketris was out there, making the squares bigger because they were kind of small, and so I went out and I just kind of helped him, and it felt almost wrong that I was like rolling paint on the parking lot, but it was awesome, and some of the artwork that the students have laid down was really just incredible. I mean, some of them are just. Anyway, some of them it's a shame to drive across them.
I saw an uber good one.
Yeah, my son wrote the Uber. Our last name is Huber. He wrote the Uber logo, and then he took gold spray paint and spray painted an H in front of it. So, anyway, I said it before, and I'm gonna repeat just one different thing. The National Night Out. I do want to thank Roseville PD. Thank you for being here, but I do want to mention now. I'm going to flip it around. In my conversations with them, several of them wanted me to convey to the board that they were proud to be associated with us, and that they were proud of our leadership in getting kids back in school and getting kids back and I in getting kids back with full-time, no masks, all of that. And I quickly said, you know what, this couldn't have happened without the entire team, and I mean everybody. All of our employees, and particularly teachers and staff, it just couldn't have happened. I mean, but anyway, what I thought was most poignant was one of them said, my husband and I were renting a home somewhere. And when our lease was up, we decided we're done. We're moving to Roseville because they were not living in the city. And she specifically said, I will not go somewhere where my kids can't be in our Roseville schools because of what happened over the last couple of years. So I wanted to share that with you. Anyway, just anecdotal. Last thing I wanted to mention is I was at one of the high schools it was West Park, for the opening day, and it was awesome to see it full. It's the first year they've had 4 classes. First year was 2, then 3, then 4. And we went through that at Antelope, right? First year was 2, then 3, and then 4. And there was an energy when there were 4 classes at Antelope that there wasn't when there were 3 of them. And there was an energy when the students walked in, the drum line was going. And anyway, it was phenomenal. And I wish I could have been at every one of the schools for their opening day, because I guarantee you it was phenomenal at every one of the schools. And in large measure, principals, that's on you. So thank you. And I'll piggyback on John's comment. Rob, I apologize you didn't get a full summer vacation. And I know you didn't because I got a lot of phone calls from you about, hey, I wanted to tip you off that this is going on. Hey, I want your opinion on that. Hey, I just want you to know that such and such is happening. But thank you for being there. Yeah. You called me from Cabo, right? I'm sure. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for being here, and we appreciate it, and we appreciate all the hard work, and may this be a year like every other regular year we've ever had. And with that, meeting adjourned.